Hi, welcome to our daily encounter. Today, for our devotion, we want to focus on the importance of the gospel and in proclaiming the gospel message in our lives and making the gospel a more influential part of our lives. And this is all signified by the trumpets. In Numbers chapter 10, God told Moses to make these two silver trumpets. They were to make two of them made out of silver of hammered work. And they were going to be used for summoning and for sending out the congregation. This is found in the first two verses of chapter 10. And all these little details that are given about these trumpets have spiritual significance behind them and relate to the gospel message. The fact that there were two of them. In the scriptures, the number 2 signifies witness. If you go to Deuteronomy chapter 17, there the topic at hand is justice and how to render justice and to not stone someone too quickly without due process of law, and also without the proper amount of witnesses. It says there that you should not convict anyone based upon one witness. It had to be at least 2 witnesses, and also could be 2 or 3 witnesses. And so the number 2 becomes a number that signifies witness. And of course, that's what the gospel message is all about. It's about witnessing to others. It's about telling others what we have experienced through the gospel, how the gospel has changed our lives. To tell people our story about how we were once lost in sin. We were once at odds with God. We've seen the destructiveness of sin in our lives, and how when we heard the gospel that God can forgive us of all that and that we can have a clean slate, how that not only gave us a feeling of relief, but also gave us a transforming power in our lives. So the gospel message to us is like a witness to others. So the number 2 is significant, but also the fact that it was made out of silver. We've looked at before how silver signifies redemption. In this same book in Numbers, chapter 18, we're going to see how the firstborn were redeemed by 5 shekels of silver. And so silver, throughout scriptures, signifies redemption. And so, of course, the gospel message is based upon the redemptive work of Christ. Christ buying us back. As Peter would say in his first epistle, that we have been redeemed, not by silver or gold, but by the precious blood of Jesus Christ. And certainly He has redeemed us. He has bought us back. He has brought us back to God through His precious blood. So the gospel is not only a witness, but also it's based upon the redemptive work of Christ. But then it's also made out of hammered work, which could very well signify the sufferings that Christ had to go through. In Isaiah 53, it says, "We esteemed Him stricken, smitten by God, and afflicted." And even in the narrative itself of Jesus' crucifixion, we see Him being beaten, being struck on the face, being scourged. He was beaten and then ultimately put to death. And so the fact that these silver trumpets were made of hammered work very much signifies the sufferings of Christ. And so we have this witness based upon the redemption of Christ, which was based upon the sufferings of Christ. And these major components made up these trumpets. And they were made basically for 2 reasons. There's actually several reasons. If you go through and you read down to verse 10, all of these different reasons why they used the trumpets, or times when they used the trumpets, signify certain things. And we won't go through time in this devotion going through each one of those, because all of it can be summed up basically in these 2 things: summoning the people and sending out the people. They would blow the trumpets when they wanted the whole congregation to come together. They'd blow one of the trumpets when they just wanted the leaders to come together, but they would summon the people. And the gospel message is what brings us Christians together as a church. And it is us all hearing the call of the gospel, salvation through Jesus Christ, that one calls us to Christ and calls us to God through Jesus Christ, but also calls us to each other. But it's also the gospel message that sends us out. Because we have been saved by God, and we have this witness based upon the redemption of Christ, which is based upon the sufferings of Christ, it should send us out. It should propel us to go out into the world and share that message with others. And so the gospel can bring us together, but also send us out. And before we close the devotion, I just want to make this point. You know, these two silver trumpets really would have had no benefit to the congregation if no one picked them up and actually blew through them, right? That's true of really any musical instrument. A musical instrument is only good if someone actually picks it up and gives it life. I have a couple, maybe even a few musical instruments that I have on hand that I don't play very often. And it doesn't really benefit me nor anyone else when I don't play those instruments. They just sit there. And how often in our lives as Christians do we have this beautiful gospel message, more beautiful than these silver trumpets would have been. This beautiful gospel message that just lays buried, hidden in our hearts, and it's never given life, or it's never being spoken in our lives, or maybe even not even being lived out in our lives. And that's a shame. The gospel message is a beautiful thing, but it's only beneficial if we pick it up and use it, just like a trumpet. I'm reminded of Romans chapter 10, where Paul says this in verse 14. How then will they call on him whom they have not believed? How will they believe in him whom they have not heard? Or who would have been summoned in Israel by the trumpets if they didn't ever hear the trumpets blown? And who's going to come to God if they never hear the gospel message? But he goes on, he says, how will they hear without a preacher? And how are you going to hear without someone actually speaking the gospel message? And how will they preach unless they are sent? As is written, how beautiful are the feet of those who bring good news of good things. And that's absolutely true. When we go out and we proclaim the gospel message, we have beautiful feet. We are bringing good news, good tidings to all people. And so let's focus on that today. And you know, I've been thinking about this a lot this week, about sharing the gospel, and really been praying that the Lord open up doors that I might share the gospel with others. And let's have that on all of our hearts today. Be praying to God that you'll be able to share the message with someone this week. Be praying to God that He'll give you the courage to go out and share the gospel. Pray to the Lord that you'll live a life worthy of the gospel, and that through your example you can also proclaim the gospel. But we just really have to pick up these trumpets. We have to pick up these trumpets and blow them loud. If ever our nation needed the gospel message, it's today. And our friends, our relatives, our neighbors, our co-workers, they need to hear the saving message of Jesus Christ. So let's think about that today. In closing, I just want to say, I thank you guys for watching the video. I hope you guys have a great day today. I love you guys. God bless.